Nigi Jai Putabahin Kuja Hodge. Ako the Mr. Gomez Jay, he's with the DOJ. Ako Aid Khodot he's going to do a review on particularly this legislation. Adult Mr. Etsidi A in the areas of environmental issues. Ajab Benaidik Kidako A he's going to some information and questions, so he will respond to those. This legislation and overview, Goshin, I know we have 20 minutes, and it will probably take more than that to go over. However, we'll do the best we can to provide you an overview and update you on this particular legislation, Shinanda. So I'd like to turn this over at this time to Mr. Gomez and provide an update. Mr. Pro Tem Chair, we'll turn this over to Mr. Gomez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, Council delegates, what you have before you is an amendment, number 1, to a lease entered into with the Navajo Generating Station participants, originally in 1969. Briefly, this is an indenture of lease dating back to September 29th, 1969, entered into between the Navajo Nation and Arizona Public Service, Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, Nevada Energy, Salt River Project, and the Tucson Electric. Originally, the term was 50 years with a right to extend the lease for another 25 years. That is what's happening today in this amendment, is they're exercising that right to extend the lease for 25 years. The 50-year term is expected to expire on December 22nd, 2019. So it's from 25 years from there to carry it out to December 22nd, 2044. Some of the major provisions in this lease include an increase in the annual lease payment. Currently, they've been paying $608,000 annually under the lease payment. What this
Excuse me, would you come closer to your microphone so we'll be able to have our colleagues be able to hear what you're saying here? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll repeat that last sentence. Currently, they're paying $608,000 annually in lease payments at the Navajo Generating Station. The proposed amendment would escalate that up to $9 million annually. This $9 million payment would be escalated on an annual basis pursuant to a consumer price index. Another amount that they're currently paying is they currently pay taxes up to 1/2 of what they pay to the state of Arizona. So that payment comes out to about $2.39 million annually, so about $2.4 million in taxes annually. What this new lease amendment would do is create a new term, additional payments. And these additional payments would initially start out at around $10 million annually, and may go as high as in 2020 could go as high as $34 million if all 3 units of the power plant are operating at that point in time. If the power plant, the megawatts of the power plant currently are 2250 megawatts, if they should drop down by 10% or more, and then the additional payments would drop down by that percentage. For example, if one unit were to close, and then the additional payments would drop by a third. What the lease amendment also provides is an opportunity for ownership in the NGS generation for the Navajo Nation if they should elect to exercise that option. So that's something that somebody had mentioned. They wanted an opportunity to own part of the electrical generation that is in the lease amendment. It also provides for consents to grants of right-of-ways and easements that are needed by the NGS participants to move their electricity from the NGS plant to the locations. But the lease also provides local government, local community involvement, 2% of the lease amount, which is about $180,000 in 2011 dollars, so that contributions will be made to local communities in that amount on an annual basis. It also provides for additional scholarships of about $250,000 in 2011 dollars, and this will be administered through the Navajo Nation Scholarship Foundation. Getting back to where we are right now, initially the original lease amendment was passed in April. At that point in time, the NGS participants indicated that they could not accept all the amendments that were made to it at that time. So meetings were held, and between the council delegates and SRP as to what can be accepted and what could not be accepted, so that the lease amendment you have in front of you today has some of those changes. It has in section 12E, it has changes as to the how much earth is to cover the ash within the ash disposal area. Section 12D has a change in language regarding the Navajo preference, Navajo employment preference that was proposed. Section 12 of Amendment 1 has added to the property, to permanent structures, list of permanent structures, and the list of permanent structures, these are items that when the plant closes would be left behind, and added to that was a request that was made by one of the council delegates, the lake pump station and 2 30-inch water delivery pipes between the lake pump station and the metering pit located on the plant site, so that these water delivery systems would be left. Those were the major changes, I guess, from what was passed in April to what you have before you today. I think there's been a lot of meetings and discussion as to, and we've gone over these changes with subcommittees, and I think that would conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Mr. Pro Tem Speaker, next is Mr. Etsi.
Mr. Etsi, you may proceed.
Good afternoon. The clock that I'm looking at shows 12 o'clock straight up. Che Stephen Etsi, Shijane, Tohe Cleaning Shle, Aro الشهادة. I've been serving our Navajo Nation government, our Navajo Nation people since 2003. I have the benefit of being a part of this, my organization and the Navajo Nation, as environmental regulations that are impacting facilities such as Navajo Generating Station were initiated. The presentation that I have to give today is a part of the overall information that goes into informing the Navajo Nation regarding the continual relationship with the owners of NGS and the operations of NGS as an electrical generating unit. I wanted to point out that at the very top, the particular regulation that I'm going to be focusing on is called the Regional Haze Rule, and the specific aspect of the Regional Haze Rule that I want to share information with you about is what's called the best available retrofit technology determination that the U.S. government through U.S. EPA is responsible for making, and the particular set of pollutants that is at issue are nitrogen oxides emissions that are currently being emitted from the Navajo Generating Station. Very quickly, the Navajo EPA has been in place as a regulatory agency within the Navajo Nation since 1995. At that time, the Council enacted the Navajo Nation's version of the Clean Air Act and gave the Navajo Nation EPA certain authorities and direction as to the development and the implementation of a Navajo Nation air quality program. Since then, we've been working with U.S. EPA on a variety of issues, from program development to where now we have obtained a delegation of authority of a certain level for our own permitting program over major source facilities like NGS. NGS is one of 13 facilities that we now regulate in conjunction with the United States. And notably, Navajo EPA and the Navajo Nation were part of many of the precursors to the Regional Haze Rule, namely the Grand Canyon Visibility Transport Commission that was initiated in the late 80s and culminated in the 1996 report to Congress, and then the actual development of the Regional Haze Rule itself. My agency and past directors and past administrations have been involved over the years in these rules. When I first came on board in 2003, we were dealing with the culmination of sulfur dioxide emission reductions under this Regional Haze Rule and a BART decision for Four Corners Power Plant. And so since the beginning of my term as executive director, I have worked with U.S. EPA and many stakeholders across our Four Corners region, and I know that emissions are being reduced from not only NGS but also Four Corners Power Plant and the facility just off the reservation in New Mexico known as the San Juan Generating Station. So before you today, in the context of this negotiation that the nation has been involved in and the ultimate decision that we have to make on the lease amendments, which cover an extended period of additional 25 years from 2019 to 2044, there is a current BART rulemaking that the U.S. EPA initiated for NGS. It also initiated BART determinations for Four Corners Power Plant, and as you are aware, that rulemaking is trying to make its way towards a final status. So when we look at the situation regarding NGS, EPA's initial proposal was made in 2009. It indicated at that point in time that the agency was leaning towards the application of the control technology called selective catalytic reduction, and the nation was afforded an opportunity to provide early input, and our comments to date have never changed in terms of what we foresee as the best pathway forward for both the continued operations as well as for NGS complying with U.S. EPA regulations and doing its part to improve visibility over national parks in our region. Our basic comments were to EPA to allow for a phased-in approach of any control technology. We did not approve or concede that SCRs would be the best available retrofit technology at the beginning, but that over a period of time that SCRs may be appropriate in terms of a phased approach to emissions reductions. Our first selection of a technology highlighted low NOx burners and separated over fire air. It's taken close to 4 years, about 3.5 years. EPA finally did propose a proposed rule for BART this past January. The Federal Register announcement came out in February, and essentially EPA is proposing SCRs on all 3 units at NGS, and they want them to apply them by 2018. However, EPA has also included additional alternatives which would extend the application deadline for SCRs and has opened up the door even further to receive proposals, alternative proposals for what could be better than BART from any entity that would want to propose those. The deadline for this comment period has been extended a couple of times. It is now October 4th, 2013, and we expect EPA to make a ruling on this BART determination next calendar year. I have more to discuss in terms of what has taken place since EPA has made its proposed rule and some of the things that are happening to develop an alternative pathway towards complying with BART. And I'm afraid I may need more time, but I will leave that at Speaker Pro Tem's and the sponsor's discretion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your presentation of your allocation of 20 minutes has expired, and I think we'll be able to get you some more time as we have the delegates present their questions, and I'll give you that opportunity towards the end of that discussion there. And so I have a listing here of wishing to speak. We have Honorable Leonard Sosi, the first on the list, followed by Mr. Jenny here. And so, Mr. Sosi, you have that opportunity.
Thank you, Speaker Pro Tem and members of the Council, presenters. I make these comments with due respect to the workers at this power plant. And I think it's important that we discuss these issues in a wholesome manner. Unfortunately, we don't have a write-up, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, comparing what we did with resolution that we passed before. I take that resolution CAP-21-13 to be the stronger resolution that we passed. This is a weak resolution, and we're giving up, we're giving in. I can't subscribe to that, and so I don't know if the Council wishes to approve a weaker resolution, but that is your prerogative. And then this was tabled at Navigated. You know, and sometimes we employ these ploys to prevent talking about it, and so it would just go to the Council, and it looks like that's what happened. You know, the talking things out should have been at Navigated to address all the concerns, because we only have 5 minutes here. But it's a strategy used, unfortunately, in the wrong way. So the other thing, too, is that how this whole thing started was on a bad advice in a bad way. And that's why I received a lot of discussion. And I submit that a fatigue factor has creeped in. People are just kind of tired, and I'm tired of talking about it. And so now maybe that's the strategy, everybody's tired of it. Let's just pass it, and I hope we don't do that. But rather, the bad advice was that we were told that this is subject to automatic renewal. But then later, some of us, we found out that the 323 grants, which is more valuable, is not subject to automatic renewal. But the two have, the lease and the 323 grants have to go hand in hand. And so I think it's very important that we understand that. See, all of that, when you're presenting something that's controversial, and I say this to the speaker, but it's something that should have been presented, to us this morning. And so we could better understand what was negotiated out and what was kept in and why. In this case, we don't have that. So because of the lack of that information, we're going to be somewhat voting in the blind, blindly. I know that, this has been a way over the years, has become a cheap way of getting power and water to Phoenix for the growth of Phoenix and the southern Arizona. And that's what it has caused. And so the southern Arizona has benefited tremendously from this power plant. But the Navajo Nation received pennies. And it's just one of those schemes to allow the use of northern Arizona, the resources of northern Arizona, and transport it down to Phoenix. And, today, the conditions are the same in northern Arizona, but the conditions are very different in southern Arizona. And you see, to our detriment, Phoenix has grown and has become politically and economically powerful. We did that to ourselves by causing this growth to happen, because this is a way of providing cheap power and cheap water for the benefit of the growth of northern Arizona. In the last resolution, we were trying to hold the U.S. government accountable to its trust responsibility. That has been taken out. And then there's less money here also. And so for these reasons, I think you have to look at it yourself, members of the council, before you vote. Whether the cost of Navajo sovereignty is $40 million, I say not. I think we should vote this down, stay with our original strong position, and get something better, rather than turning in our sovereignty, the sovereignty of the Navajo Nation, for $43 million. And we should not do that. The other thing that we have found, that I have found too with the experience with BHP, is that there's no assurance. There's no assurance that we will get this. And so it's very important that we get some form of assurance and insurance on getting these funds. And when
Mr. Chinazirne, you're up next, sir.
Mr. Pro Tem Speaker, members of the 22nd Navajo Nation Council, sponsor, Speaker Nays, agents, staff, guests, I would have figured these amendments would have made this legislation a lot more stronger for Navajo Nation benefits. All I heard from DOJ, and thank you, was on number 12. And those are the only amendments that's the difference from the original legislation. And thanks for working on that. And according to what I'm reading here it's mainly about the 323 grant. And if Four Corner Power Plant shuts down, is it that their transmission line will be transferred to the Moncopi El Dorado transmission line? And and what I'm talking about is the Moncopi El Dorado transmission line. Is that the transmission line at Cameron? And then there's going to be another right-of-way agreement again. When we wanted the 323, all 323 right-of-ways under one date. Now, these amendments that were proposed in the original legislation, I do not see them in here, which I wanted to see. I'm glad that there's a scholarship fund that's underlined and that's going to be included, which I do support. I support and I do appreciate that there is a chapter fund being amended, because that the affected chapters out there have been asking that they be included in this lease. But I need more clarification on this, and all in all, members of the council, I do support the renewal of the Navajo Generating Station lease agreement. Mr. Pro Tem Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Sinajini, and we also have Mr. Leonard Pete up next to speak, and followed by Mr. Witherspoon, Otto, and Nelson Begay. Here we have three individuals that have on the list here. Mr. Pete.
Speaker Pro Tem, Otto, our Speaker, to all members of the council, to all those are in the audience in the gallery. I knew this was going to happen when we considered the first legislation. Having gone down to Phoenix and questioned them and questioned them and questioned them for 2 days, we made several amendments to that legislation. When they sat down with us in good faith and when they made an agreement with us, and we decided to turn around and put some amendment in there. Yeah, it's sort of what a garbage and it's on that not really. But they did not discuss this reason. Not so long any auto don't send I thought it on it. Even now, Tankadi, even on it. I knew what's going to happen. The 50,000 acre feet that was allocated to them, I got a question on that one. Was it already allocated to them coming out of the Northern Division, Northern Colorado River? When it was allocated to them, when did it happen? Did it happen before the legislation was passed here in this chamber, or was it after the fact, after they were allocated at 50,000? Did that come in here just out of common courtesies of the supporting resolution? Did that happen? I gotta have a question on that one. The other question I have is that 50,000 acre feet that was allocated to them. Can we legally and technically go after a portion of that water hole was allocated to them? It's given to them already. And the other thing is throwing all the question down at Phoenix. They said they can easily put up 2 or 3 power plants down south using the natural gas, and they can easily shut down the generating station and forget us. That's a part I fear. But the gun all the gate don't start all the all the gates don't have to be pausing. I thought they not let they stone such a fun I should not die. 那当你的亲的，当你的，这那好几十倍，那好几十倍，那好几十。